Okay, let's get started. Everyone's seen the presentation?
Yeah.
Okay, very good.
Stage 1 clarifies the research.
Yes, that's right. Very good.
Yes, we can see.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Okay, so let's get organized here first. So if you haven't done so already, you will need to submit your week 3 discussion posts before midnight U.S. Eastern Time tomorrow. So make sure you get that submitted. If you have any difficulties, please let me know. I know that a couple of you have reached out and said you were having some issues with getting online or some other things that can come up. So please do reach out to me if you have any difficulties like that. I will work with you to make sure you have enough time to get those assignments done. Okay. And also for your chapter 3 writing assignment, make sure that you email that to my Windsor University email address. And in the subject line, I didn't put it here, but make sure that you put your name and then put a chapter 3 writing assignment. If you leave it blank, it's going to be difficult for me to find your writing assignment and grade it, review it, grade it, give you some feedback on it. So that'll help me. It'll help you if you just put in that subject line your name and then chapter 3 writing assignment. Okay, so we reviewed we did an overview of the research process last week, and we were talking about these 5 stages. So this week we're in stage 1. This is clarifying the research question and also the exploration strategy. So in this stage, one of the things that we want to look at defining the management research question hierarchy. So you want to look at that hierarchy as those research questions are applied to the research study. And then, of course, we want to value the research, to justify and budget for research, and then, of course, define the exploration strategy. Okay, so this is the question hierarchy. And you'll notice here we have 1, 2, 3, 4 levels in the hierarchy. But notice here before and after there are some specific items that you would address in prior to and post this activity in the hierarchy questions. So the management dilemma would actually come before the management questions. So what symptoms cause management concern? What environmental stimuli raise management interest? So that's the impetus, right? That's your ignition for even getting started with the research. And so from this dilemma, you formulate this question, the management question. So how can management eliminate the negative symptoms? How can management fully capitalize on an opportunity? So let's look at these first 2 here. So why do you think it's important to have this level here before you even get to the actual hierarchy of questions, this management dilemma? What is so significant about that? Why is that even there? But why don't they just have the 4 levels of the hierarchy? Why do you think Schindler has emphasized this management dilemma? You can put it in a chat or speak up, and I'll give you a minute to think about it.
Maybe this is in order to focus on the target and for the goal of the management, in order to miss the direction during the making the research.
Yes, very good. Yes, very good. Is that Ashraf? Is it correct? Is that how you?
Ashraf.
Okay, sure.
I think
Yes.
also one of our colleagues in the discussion write about the problems in the research questions or research problems that we miss the main objective, or we are not identify it. The research is not clear. I think the first two questions is to be clearly have an objective for the research. So it's a must to avoid the problems. We must ask the first two questions.
Mhm. Very good. Yes. Yes, very good. Yes. Yes.
I think also knowing the symptoms to be clear symptoms, I think that it is the first stage or the first step to reach to the root cause of the problem, because sometimes symptoms in different problem or dilemma may be alike or the same symptoms. So I think here to define clear symptoms is the first stage to arrive to the root cause or the root questions in the right direction.
Very good. Very good. So last week we watched a video about clearly defining a research question. So that's very good. Good. Those are all very good responses. Okay, so then here we are at this the first level of the hierarchy question, and then so how can management eliminate the negative symptoms? How can management fully capitalize on an opportunity? And from there, then we have the research question. So we have the management question, and now we can formulate the research question or questions. So in this example, they have one question that says, what plausible causes of action are available to management to correct a problem or take advantage of an opportunity and reach and which should be considered. So that's important, right? So you have to make a decision at this point. So which plausible causes of action are available to management to correct a problem or take advantage of the opportunity, and which should be considered. So this is not going to be a buffet, right? Where you can, because you have a budget, you have time constraints. So you have to focus. One of you said something about focusing, and that's correct. You have to focus. So remember that just focusing on that one opportunity doesn't mean that we're limited. As we learned last week, you can actually discover additional solutions, or even unveil some problems that you didn't even know existed just by focusing in that one area. So that's really important to just remember to stay focused, zero in on something. So make it too broad. It's just going to be too much to manage. It'll be too difficult to manage the research. So good. So and then we get into the specific type of questions. So investigative questions. What does the manager need to know to choose the best alternative from the available courses of action? So this is really important. This level 3 in the hierarchy. This investigative question. So what would that look like? So it says, what does the manager need to know to choose the best alternative for the available courses of action? So what sort of things would the manager need to know in order to make a good business decision on which course of action to take as a result of this this research proposal?
I think after identifying any problem, we set a set of solutions for it, or suggest some solutions. These solutions need to be investigated to be correct or not correct. So I think this is the investigation questions, to investigate the authenticity or practicality of these solutions for this problem.
Yes, yes, very good.
Also, I think if we have a lot of many solutions or different solutions, here the researchers, I think it's a must to know each solution, what is the pros and cons for each one to ease the selection and the selection of the available solution from a group of different solutions.
Very good. Yes. So you're presenting some options to the manager, right, based on your research and investigation. So very good. Okay, so then there's some measurement questions. So what should be asked or observed to obtain the information the manager needs? So that's where we're really getting into to the research portion of this, right? I mean, this all of these are some type of research, is going to be involved in doing these. But the measurement questions, that's where you're really going to get into. That's really where you're going to gather your data and all of the real substance of the research is going to happen in this these measurement questions. That's going to drive how you conduct your research. So so what are your thoughts on that? So what are some of the what does that look like in the measurement questions? What was a measurement question look like? What would be an example of a measurement question? And this could occur in qualitative or quantitative research. So what are your thoughts?
Questions like how many, for example, or how much, or what is the percentage of, I think for the quantitative one.
Mm-hmm. Yes, very good. Could it also include measurement of time? How long, how often, kind of thing? With that?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Okay. So after the measurement question, then now we're back here to the management decision. So we've gone through all these levels of the hierarchy, and then to arrive at this is where they said the rubber meets the road, right? This is the decision maker, the manager. So what is the recommended course of action given the research insights? So this is where management gets to decide, as one of you, a couple of you have mentioned, the feasibility of this research and the findings. Is it financially feasible for the company? What benefits does it give to the company as a whole, to the organization as a whole? So we'll see that in a lot of the research, a lot of the case studies that you're reading about in these chapters, where these managers had to really make a decision on literally an executive decision on whether or not the research is feasible. What is it going to by them. What are they going to get out of it as an organization? So very good. Let's see here. Okay, so the process for formulating a research question, and this here is the exploration strategy. So secondary and tertiary sources, and that was covered in chapter 3, and so we might look at that a little bit later in more detail. Some good information on that. And then over here, primary sources. So and then you can see where there is a blending between the two types of sources. So internal sources, published sources, digital sources will fall into both of those categories. But over here in the secondary and tertiary sources, so you have external sources, published sources, finding aids, actual source, and digital sources. And then on the primary sources, company historians, which is interesting, industry experts on a problem or solution. That would be one of the very first places you might go. And then employees involved with the problem, another place. Oftentimes, this is an overlooked area of a lot of upper management in corporations will overlook the fact that they actually have sources and very reliable sources in their employees and employees affected by the solution. So that's above and beyond the profit that they want to make sure that they're maintaining and gains and earnings is they want to make sure that they're addressing anything that employees affected by this solution. So, but sometimes that's not always the case, right? Sometimes there's some short-sightedness or narrow vision where they're just looking at the so-called bottom line, which is the profit or the earnings, and they don't look at the impact that it might have on the employees. And the employees are the engine that makes that corporation run, right? That's your biggest asset are going to be your employees, because they are the ones that make it run. So oftentimes decisions are made without taking that into consideration. So let's look at this. And so then the types of management questions. And let me go back to this other slide and make sure I went away from that too quickly. Any questions on this, and any comments or questions here? I kind of went on about the employees part of it and how sometimes that's overlooked. Do you agree with that? Do you have any experience with that?
Yes, regarding the last 2 points, employees involved with the problem and employees affected by the solution. I think most companies or some companies does not involve the employees in it, and this is fire back on them, because the employees are the one going to solve it. What I mean, they don't take their opinions in the problem. Sometimes they go to external sources like consultant, HR consultant, to solve the problems. By the way, we are facing nowadays in our company something like this. They did not involve the employees in the problem or solution, despite we have the solution for it, and we recognize the problem, and they get outside consultant, and finally the consultant asks us what's the problem, and when we inform him, he informs the higher management. So there is a big gap. So I'm facing the last 2 problems that needed to be solved.
Oh, that's very good, Mohammed. Thank you. So that's a good point that Mr. Varela makes there, is that sometimes the corporation will pay a consultant to come in, and the consultant only conducts an interview of the employees and then reports back what upper management could have gotten from by themselves from the employees. So that they wasted their money and time by not going directly to the employees. Yes, that's very true. Another thing that happens is sometimes employees can become, um, you know, disgruntled and and leave a corporation based on the impact that some of these solutions might have on them. And so very good. And also, you know, when you feel like your voice isn't being heard, um, and it impacts how you do your work, that creates, you know, um, an environment, a work environment where a lot of people just don't want to be a part of it. Well, you just certainly won't derive any joy or happiness. And of course, it's work, you know, so it doesn't always have to be fun and joy. There's some labor involved, but people do have a threshold that once you surpass that threshold and their tolerance, they won't take it anymore. So good comments. Thank you. All right, so here we are at the types of management questions. So over here they have it broken into categories, the general questions, and they provide some samples here. So the category is the evaluation of solutions. So and they explain that that's choices between concrete action to solve problems or take advantage of opportunities. And we talked about that. So the general question is, how can we achieve the objectives we have set? So that's important, right? So we have this plan, and it looks good, you know, as they say, it looks good on paper, but how realistic is it? And so how can we achieve these objectives that we've set at this stage? So, and the other one is choice of purpose. So what do we want to achieve? That is so important, right? Even in anything that you do, there has to be an end goal in mind. So so if you go into it without this end goal that you want to reach, then you can go on forever, right? You can just continue on and on and on down the proverbial rabbit hole and then never really reach any kind of a solution. And again, that's going to be a waste of time, money, and then going back to the people involved, resources. So, and then troubleshooting. So why is our fill in the blank program not meeting its goals? That's an important question that we want to then control. So monitoring or diagnosing ways an organization is failing to meet its goals. So how well is our program meeting its goals? So these last two are very, very important too. They're all important. So just go back to this one here, this choice of purpose. This is what goals should XYZ try to achieve in its next round of union negotiations. So this is just some type of types of management questions that might come up. But what do you think about this? So looking at these categories and these questions, what do you think about this? So there's the evaluation of solutions, choice of purpose, troubleshooting, control. This open up a discussion on that in this research process. Of these four, what would you say would have the greatest impact on the research study? And briefly explain why you believe that. So of these four here, these four categories, and then these questions that give us an example of those categories. Why, for example, might the evaluation of solutions, how can we achieve the objectives we have set? How might that be the most important one, or maybe it's here, maybe it's troubleshooting. It's the most important type of management question. Yes, Somya's got her hand raised. Yes, Somya.
So since you asked about that choice of purpose, basically, in my understanding, that what the way organizations really approach individuals in their organizations so that they can adopt those purposes, and there can be many reasons for that kind of approach. Is like profit maximization, that they really their focus is to maximize the profit in the organization. Also stakeholders orientation, that they really want to take the broader perspective so that their organizations can really go beyond just the first line stakeholders and really include everybody, employees, customers, suppliers, communities, and everybody. And there could be various others, and really that how it's like socially and environmentally impacting that all those kind of purposes could be there, so that and that's the reason they're making those choices.
Very good, very good. Thank you. Yes, so that's yes.
Professor Rex, I think the 4 questions or the 4 categories are the 4 pillars. But from my point of view, we might have a lot of questions, but we must prioritize them if we want a quick win or long-term win based on our strategy. So the research must focus on what we want now. Is it quick win? So we must prioritize the questions that answer what will get us quick win for now. So prioritizing the questions or the purposes based on the profitability or based on the situation, on the current situation. So I think the second one is the most important, to prioritize the purposes.
Okay. Very good, very good. So you agree with Samya, and I like the way you phrased that, the 4 pillars. So I get this visual, of these pillars, and if you remove one, then that compromises the integrity of the structure. It's not as sound and not as reliable as it would be if it had all 4 pillars. So that's thank you, Selma. Thank you, Zebwe. That's very good feedback. Okay, so this all right, so I have a short video here for us, and please let me know if you can hear this.
My name is Beth Bernig, and I'm the PI of the Research Data Assistance Center and a professor at the University of Minnesota School of Public Health. Today, I'm going to be talking to you about defining a research question for applications of CMS data. So as a first step, I think it's important to clarify why this is an important process. And the reason is, for CMS data users, is that HIPAA allows for healthcare-related data to be released for research purposes. So therefore, it's essential that all users of CMS data need to be able to write their request in the form of a research question. So it isn't about importance, but it's about whether it meets this criterion. If in fact you were to write your question not in a research format, your request would be denied, not because it isn't valuable, not because it might not be useful, but in fact because it hasn't met the criteria for release of the records. So research is about the creation of generalizable knowledge that has value beyond describing the specific subjects and circumstances.
Oops.
So that is to say that in addition to the knowledge I might get about the 42 people in my study, that knowledge will have value beyond those 42 people. So oftentimes research is about asking questions in the form of how variables relate to each other, associations, and answer questions about the role of, association with. Now notice it doesn't have to say causes. So it doesn't have to go all the way to causal, but it really is asking how different things relate to each other. So research is not about describing the state of the world at a particular point in time. Asking what was happening in 2012 is not a research question. You may end up describing what was happening in 2012 in the process of answering your research question, but research is about something that extends beyond that. And developing tools that are not linked to research questions is not research. You can develop tools, but for them to count as research, they need to be linked to a research question. So now let's go through some examples to see if this helps. Consider the following. I want to know whether the patients who came to my diabetes clinic on Thursday got guideline compliant care. This can be a very important question, particularly for people who are interested in having their clinic work as effectively as possible. However, it is not a research question. It's far too specific. The patients, my clinic on Thursday, it's far too precise. So while it might be locally important, it's not generalizable knowledge. However, if we rewrite it to say, I want to know what predicts receipt of guideline compliant care for diabetics attending family medicine clinics. Notice this is broader. It's a research question. It's asking about a broader group of patients. It still is specific to clinics, but it's really asking about predictors. It's asking about broader associations among variables. Another example, consider the following. I want to develop an algorithm to classify admissions as complicated or not. This is really important for people wanting to use Medicare data. There is no field that says this is a complicated admission. We need to create our classification system, and that is not a trivial process to do. We've all spent many, many hours trying to do it. However, as written, it's not a research question. There's no purpose for the tool. It's just a method to do it. I just want to do it. Why do you want to do it? I just want to do it. However, if we rewrite it a little bit, we can turn this into a research question. I want to develop an algorithm to classify admissions as complicated or not, and then use it to identify predictors of complicated admissions. So it's about the application of the method that turns it into research. We still are developing the same tool, but now we're applying the method for generalizable knowledge. Finally, consider the following. I want to create a book of maps to show how use of procedures varies across geography. Again, chart books, we do this frequently. They can be very useful, and we often get considerable insights from them. But the chart book itself, the map book, is not a research question. We're just creating pictures describing things at a point in time. There is no theory, there are no associations, and there's no stated goal of generalizable knowledge beyond what is being shown in those maps. However, again, we can rewrite this just slightly, and it changes completely. I want to see whether variation in procedures vary geographically by, and I could list things, local area income, number of hospital beds, urban-rural status. I'd also like to map use. Notice I'm still mapping use. I'm still creating my book of maps, but I'm also asking questions about predictors of geographic variation. So bottom line, for something to qualify as research, the knowledge must extend beyond the specific being studied, patients, admissions, records, providers. Next, there must be some hypothesized association among things being measured. You don't have to be right, but you have to say, even very generally, I think this is going to vary by urban-rural status. I think this is going to vary by age. I think this is going to vary by gender or race or comorbidity status. We have some idea that something is going on that we want to test. And while tool development is allowed, it has to be secondary to the plan to use the tools for answering a research question. So don't forget, when we propose our studies, they can have multiple goals. It's okay for one goal to be the development of a method or the creation of maps or graphs, as long as one goal in your proposal is generalizable knowledge. And whether creating a tool or conducting an analysis, the use, inference, and knowledge must extend beyond the specific exact records being studied. And if you keep this in mind, you should have no trouble writing a research question and getting your study approved. Thank you very much.
Okay. Okay, so what do you think about what stood out to you about that short video? What specific thing? Yes, yes, honey.
So, Professor, I think she really clarify a lot about the research, exactly what I should be calling a research, unless there is a goal mentioned in my research, and I'm clarifying that exactly what I'm trying to achieve in this research, and explaining it just bunch of pictures and all that information included in that research is exactly not a research unless I'm clarifying exactly how it's meeting goal. But I also think that there could be instances when we are researching something, but then there is no other written proof of that research anywhere else. And that is that definitely in my mind, and I found it. I'm that great researcher, and I found it, and there is no other proof of that research anywhere else. How I'm going to prove that exactly this is the research and this is truth? So I think in those scenarios, those kind of scenarios, all the facts, how many facts I can collect and show it to my audience is the main thing. But yes, I really, this is a great video and really so much of learning from it. Thank you so much for sharing.
No, absolutely. You're welcome. Thank you for your comments. So that those are some very, very good points that someone is making there. It's true that you need to consult the resources and to do your literature review. We'll talk about that in some later chapters. And so what's been done before, they even talk about talking to industry experts. So let's go back to one slide here. So, this is to industry experts on a problem, so you can consult them. But you might find that you're a pioneer in that particular area. You've discovered something that has never been discovered before. So that's that happens in research. It happens in research, more times than not. So that's so very good. So what? Anyone else have any comments on that video? What else stood out to you? What do you think about her saying that you don't have to be right? In fact, she specifically says you can be wrong. Why would she say that? Oh, yeah. Oh, Elena says, I consider specific research is important because it helps researchers stay focused. Use their resources efficiently, and gain a deep understanding of a particular topic. Yes, Elena, very good. Very good. That's right. Good. Any other comments on that video?
Professor, I think when she said you don't have to be right, it's an alert that you don't have to be like biased to your point of view when forming the research questions. So sometimes the results will come like not in favor of your point of view. I think that's what she meant when she said you don't have to be right. Thank you.
Yes, yeah, very good. Thank you, Mr. Yusuf. Yep. Yes. Any more comments on that? Yeah, let's go back to, and I know in another 10 minutes or so we'll get to our break. But so here it's time for a poll. So let me go ahead and I'll share my screen. Let's go to share. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and activate this poll. And can you all see this? You're seeing the poll?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so there's the question, according to the video, for what reason would a request to use HIPAA health insurance portably and Accountability Act it'll be denied by CMS?
Professor, I think it's all of the above.
Okay. Think about some of the things that were said specifically. And okay, let's see. Okay, a couple of you are starting to get it now, I think. Yeah. A couple of you. Yeah. Okay, so let's go. Okay, so let's let me go back to the presentation here. Okay, so the correct answer would be C. So Mr. Hussein, you selected C. Why did you select C?
I should say because number A, for example, because it will not add value to the organization. I think it is not the place who decide what is the benefit for organization or not. Also, data for this for HI PAA, I think it's available to use by certain laws or regulations. So I think it's not presented in research questions here is the right answer.
Yep, that's correct. And yes, excellent. Thank you for let's see here, and then Mr. Yusuf as yes, Mr. Yusuf.
Yeah, also I think she like specifically like mentioned and clearly mentioned in her video that the reason for rejecting the question will not be either like value to the organization or the sensitive information. It will be because it's not a research question.
That's correct. Yes, she did. She did actually state that. So very good. Yep, very good. And I can see why you would select all of the above. I could see. I purposely made it difficult because I wanted to be able to zero in on why this is so important. We're talking about.
But Professor, sorry, I'm interrupting here.
No,
But
no,
but when we generally, okay, looking at the video and listening it, okay,
Mhm.
and then we are understanding a question from there. But really, I mean, when we generally talk about the HIPAA rules and what can be really presented and what not, I mean, from that vast experience, because I've been working on clinical and research applications a lot, and really looking from those perspective, I think all of the above is correct, because it's not just that what is being an added value to an organization, it's also that sometimes that sensitive nature of HIPAA records, that patients personal information, their information, the data which is sensitive cannot be shared. That's always a showstopper, that you cannot really just populate those reports anywhere. So you have to really do data masking to be able to present those reports anywhere else. It's not that you cannot share those reports. It's just that you have to hide those sensitive data sets, and then only you can share it in the market. It's not just you can populate those, because I have been in the projects where we were basically doing the research on the, for example, for cancer medicine we did once, and then we were really be very sensitive towards the data we are getting from patients, and we were hiding the important information, the sensitive information, and then only we were sharing the rest of the reports. So from that perspective, most of us selected D, but I understand if it was very specific for the video, then I guess it could be C.
Mhm. Yes, that's an excellent explanation. Thank you, Samia. Yeah, and just so that you know, quite a few of your classmates agreed with you that it was a D above all. But something that, as you said in your comments, I worded it as according to the video. So it doesn't mean that that she's right or wrong, but according to the video, for what reason would a request to use HIPAA data be denied by CMS? And that was, as Mr. Yusuf said, was clearly stated in the video. It wasn't presented as a research question or in a research format. So good. I like that you are challenging it. I think that Samia's comments are coming from perspective of experience on doing this type of research. So good. I think it's all very good feedback. But I want to focus on the importance of the research question, because that is what we're studying in this step one of the research process, where we're really trying to focus on why it's so important to develop that research question. So, okay, so I have another poll question for you. So let me go ahead and get to that again. Let's go to this. Go back to here. And okay, so I'm going to activate that, present. And here, okay, so in the research hierarchy model, the management question comes before level one in the hierarchy. I think, and I think about this, I purposely put this in here to trip you up, because I know that it can be confusing. So I want you to think about what that is really saying and whether or not it's true or false. Okay, so we're starting to get some responses here. Okay. Okay, and it seems like everyone's probably on the same page here. And so that's okay. So good. So let's go back to our presentation. Okay, and okay. So okay, so yeah, it's okay. So Mr. Salam, I haven't heard from you a lot, so I'm going to ask you specifically why that you say this is false. This is a false statement.
if we refer back to the graph, we can find that for the questions, the question of the management, it doesn't come at the beginning. At the beginning, the first step is, we can say, the objective of the management. It's not the questions. The questions, something rather than the objectives. Questions comes later, but the objectives is the one which comes first.
Correct. So the management dilemma, and very, very good. Yep, that's right. So good. So okay. So let's we're at 10 minutes till. Let's go ahead and take a 10-minute break, and then we come back and we'll get into the critical nature of the research question. Okay. So we'll take that 10-minute break here for now. This morning here in my neighborhood, they're having what they call a Splash Days parade. And it's really interesting that we have a very high population of young families here, and the families are big families. They put on this parade and they line the street and they actually shut down the neighborhood. We can't get in and out of our neighborhood until the parade is concluded. So, and it usually lasts a couple of hours, but it's really interesting. We've only lived here for 4 years now, and yeah, it was quite a surprise the first time that happened. we realized we were trapped in the neighborhood. So that's going on this morning. So good time. So okay, and we're almost all back now, and another minute we'll get started. Oh, really, really great. Okay, we're back from break now. Great participation today. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you noticed that we learned a lot, just from the different perspectives. You know, from Samya's perspective, having experience with clinical research studies, and so that you know, these suggestions and even from this professor who presented in the video, we realized that, you know, nothing is going to fit neatly in the perfect box. Sometimes things are outside of those margins. You know, in research, you know, when you're doing this, the data, and you're analyzing the data, they have this curve that a lot of researchers like to establish when they're trying to establish a causal a relationship or correlations, and they have this curve, but that's all based on statistics, right? And statistics are just averages, and sometimes there's these outliers, and so yeah, sometimes there's going to be things that don't quite fall into that that neat little category. So just keep that in mind as we go through this. There are going to be some exceptions to the rule. Okay, so here we are. We're looking at critical nature of the research question. Okay, and so I highlighted a couple of things here that I think we should focus on. A research question best states the objective of the business research study. That's the first thing that I think that we need to really, and several of you have already mentioned this. I you know, and I appreciate that. So that's very, very true. But you know, it needs to state the objective of the business research study. So there just can't be some general question. And I think the video did a great job at demonstrating that. So that was really good. The other thing that is really important because again, we're talking about time, money, and resources, is that incorrectly defining the research question is the fundamental weakness in the business research process. So I want to open it up on that particular claim in that comment. Why would you think that Schindler says it's the fundamental weakness is incorrectly defining the research question? Why is that a fundamental weakness in the business research process? What, I mean, that's quite a strong statement for to make. So yes, Sonia.
Fundamental weakness, or the researcher's weakness in an organization or in a group, that they really didn't think about the research objective or research question and really didn't set their goals correctly. And I think we did discuss this, Professor, if I'm not wrong, when we were talking about the data and analytics in the last lecture, and we were talking about it. I think we are like backstepping there. I think it's the similar thing, that if we go back to doing the same data analysis again, it's again the money and time of the organization and the group, and then that cost really increases the budget. So definitely it's like a fundamental weakness. If we are not doing our homework properly and really not coming up to the conclusion of what exactly should be our goal and objective, then for sure it's a fundamental weakness or the weakness of the researcher.
Okay, very good, very good. So everything just kind of unravels, right? If that research question isn't, correctly defined, it sends us on, the wrong path, if you will. So, and I believe that's, I believe you were the one to really emphasize the impact that it would have.
Yeah, because it's always when it comes to research projects, Professor, I've seen that it's very, very important to really diligently be more diligent in collecting data, so that we don't have to back and forth, because it's really adds on cost of data and analysts, and then business analysts working on those projects. So it's been really very, very thorough research, that if we think that it's a goal, but yes, few additions could be happening if business thinks that we have to go back, but always they are very diligent in taking a back step.
Very good. Yes, very good. Anyone else to comment on that?
I think we can sum up it. If you choose the wrong road, you will not reach your goal. So that's the main fundamental. If you build everything on the wrong perspective, you will not reach the conclusion you need. So what's built on wrong will result in wrong.
Very good, very good. Yes. And Elena, yes.
Yes, I also wanted to share my experience that sometimes it happens during the brief, we call it brief, with a client, whenever we communicate and ask questions on the first initial stage. Sometimes there can be misunderstandings, and it will be wrong research question, and after that the whole result of the whole research will be definitely wrong, and will take a different path, as you told. So I really had this, I had seen this in the practice, when it was miscommunication, misunderstanding during this initial questions, and misunderstanding at that point. So this is very important to clarify and identify the research question.
Very good. Very good. Thank you. Thank you.
Hi.
Yes.
Professor. Yeah. I'm not a researcher, but in my point of view, the resulting research may not be contribute to the advancement of the knowledge in the field, maybe.
Yes, yes. So very, very good, very good. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, that's excellent, excellent feedback there. Okay, so let's go to. Okay, so now fine tuning the research question. Okay, so the term fine tuning. So this fine tuning the question is precisely what a skillful practitioner must do after the exploration is complete. So after the researcher does a preliminary review of the literature, a brief exploratory study, or both, the project begins to crystallize in one of two ways. One, it is apparent that the question has been answered and the process is finished, no further research is needed. Or two, a question different from the one originally addressed has appeared. So I don't want to move on beyond that. So that's interesting. So after the researcher does a preliminary review of the literature, a brief exploratory study, or both, the project begins to crystallize into one of these two ways. And one is the question's already been answered, and no research needs to be done. Corporation, the manager would be really happy with that, right? So going to save time and money, and they have an answer to their question, and possibly a solution to the problem, or a different question from the one originally addressed has appeared. And that, I think, Salmi, you kind of alluded to that earlier. Yeah, when you said that you could actually arrive at something that has never been accomplished in the research study. So it's unique. So let's talk about this. What out of the two ways that this could crystallize, as they say, you know, of those two ways, what do you think would be the biggest benefit to an organization of these two? And explain why you believe that.
Hello, Professor.
Yes, Mr. Owen.
I believe that when we do the tuning of the research, it makes the organization reach a better results fast, and they will like have a better, how do I say it, like better using of the resources.
Okay. Okay. So you believe that number one would be the greatest benefit to the organization if they arrive
Sure.
at that. Okay. Okay. Anyone agree with that or disagree with that?
I agree with this answer, but number two is considered as an opportunity, another opportunity to make another research. So first one is fulfilling my objectives, and the second one is an opportunity.
Okay, very good. So would there be an occasion when one might benefit the organization better than the other?
Yes, last session I told you about the Viagra.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. So Viagra did not answer the question for cardiovascular, for the coronary heart diseases. but it was a breakthrough and the backbone for Pfizer for several years in the other indication. So yes, sometimes number two is beneficial more for the companies, but it's always number one will be the best choice.
Yes, because you're going to save time and money up front, right, with number one. But yeah, your example with the Viagra, and we also talked about some of the type 2 diabetic medications,
like
where
Ozempic.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And so it proved to be a benefit to the organizations, right? Because they expanded their customer base, if you will. It went above and beyond where they thought they would be able to utilize those resources. Anyone else that does, very good comments.
But Professor,
just to continue about
oops,
sorry,
sorry.
go ahead.
Just to continue about the Ozempic, here in Saudi Arabia, Ozempic is number 3 selling product all over the country. Okay, 60% are for obesity, not for diabetes. 60%
Wow.
of the prescriptions are for obesity.
That's amazing. Yeah, very good, very good. And then Samia, and then the gentleman after Samia.
So Professor, I think it is little contradictory, first and second, because sometimes as a researcher, I'm thinking something, and for example, for I would say the COVID vaccine, initially when researchers creating the COVID vaccine, initially it was not the successful experiments or research, right? And then they had to really deep dive more and really sorry, I was muted. So then they had to really deep dive into their research and find out exactly what can be workable for the patients, and then they were successful. So I think clinical is not a good example, I would say, when it comes to when we are doing it's like two different paths in research. So clinical is always like what we are thinking and what we are creating might not work for patients, and we have to really take a back step and then deep dive and then do the research again and see what is successful. So it would be contradictory for both first and second, right? That for the first thing didn't work and then the second one worked. But that might not be the true for other research topics if we are really going a separate path on different research areas than clinical. But in clinical, it would be like both these, the first and second, the way we are thinking could be contradictory. That first didn't work and second worked.
Okay, very good. Yes, and Jillian, I think you had comments.
Yes. If the question changes or differs from the original one, it can lead to confusion and potentially invalidate the results. So that we ensure that the questions being studied is relevant and based on sound assumptions that contribute to the advancement of knowledge in the field. That's my 2 cents idea.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Yes, so yeah, we need to make sure that we're staying focused, and but these two are conditional. I believe that is what Samia trying to tell us, is that it depends on the conditions of the research. It depends on what's happening, and there's a lot of variables involved in that, right? So very good. So let's go here. So the research question does not have to be materially different, but it will have evolved in some fashion. This is not cause for discouragement. So again, I think Mr. Abuela mentioned that yeah, it could be an opportunity. So that's very true. In addition to fine-tuning the original question, the researchers should address one research question related activity other research should address other research questions, related activities in this phase to enhance the direction of the project. So examine the variables to be studied. Are they satisfactorily defined? Have operational definitions been used where appropriate? Review the research questions with the intent of breaking them down into specific second and third level questions. If hypotheses, tentative explanations are used, make sure they are appropriately stated. Very important. Determine what evidence must be collected to answer the various questions and hypotheses. Set the scope of the study by stating what is not a part of the research question. That's very important as well. This will establish a boundary, and there's that word, boundary, to specific contiguous problems from the primary objective. So that's really important, right? You have to stay in your lane, so to speak, when you're doing research, because there's just so much information out there that you can end up wasting time, money, and resources. Again, I'll repeat that a lot because that is the specific nature of what we're doing in this course, is to be able to work more effectively and efficiently when we're utilizing those company resources. So very, very good. Okay, investigative questions. So here, research is investigation. It's just you want to investigate and you to discover something. You have an idea. It's maybe solving a riddle or a mystery, but you have this idea, and so it takes some investigation to arrive at the answer that you want. So investigative questions represent the information that the decision maker needs to know. Each question has several sub questions, so that's interesting, right? So here you have this question, and it's going to generate yet again more questions or sub questions. So what is the public's position regarding financial services and their use? And then here the sub questions would be, what specific financial services are used, how attractive are various services, what bank-specific and environmental factors influence a person's use of a particular service, and again, what is the bank's competitive position? What are the geographic patterns of our customers and of our competitors' customers? That's important, right? You have to think about your competition. What demographic differences are revealed among our customers and those of our competitors? What descriptive words or phrases does the public, both customers and non-customers, associate with our bank, with our competitors? And then how aware is the public of our bank's promotional efforts? What opinion does the public hold of our bank and its competitors? How does growth in services compare among competing institutions? So that's the second question generated a lot of sub questions. So these are great examples here. So what are your thoughts here? Why are they making us aware of this? Is this something that would just come naturally, that we would just think about, or is it important that we are aware that each question has several sub questions? How could that or would that not impact the research? Yes. And Did you want to speak, Soumya? Okay, good.
Sorry, I was trying to avoid the background noises on weekend.
Oh,
So,
that's fine.
so I think it's, yeah, we are giving the financial services example here, but I think it's true in every research, and research really could be anything, like really when we are creating an application or we are creating a medication or whatever it is. But for sure that each question we are thinking, and that's why we have like workshops with users, with patients, with everybody uh, in the stakeholders group. And really, for sure, each question will come up with many several sub questions, because unless we really break that question, that exactly what we are thinking in that particular direction for that question, until it's solved, we cannot jump on to the next question. So, and that's why, those user workshops or stakeholder workshops are very useful to really decode all these questions.
Very good. Yes. So there's a lot of rigor involved in research. It isn't just a surface level thing. You have to dig deeper, and sometimes, as somebody was saying, that's going to lead you to sometimes, like, just a few sub questions. But in the second, scenario here, this what is the bank's competitive position? Well, that just led to 6 sub questions in their example there, and they will find out a lot. Yes, Elena, please.
Yes, I'm also sorry that if I will have background noise also. Today is weekend, so I'm not alone. When we have investigation, like when we have brief with clients, for instance, we have a plan with our investigation questions. But sometimes when we communicate with this communication, we understand that we have difference, another question by understanding the information which we are receiving. So that's why our every question has sub questions, and they can be different. Taking into consideration that data that information data that we get and immediately if it's conversation. So this is the case.
Oh, very good. Thank you.
Professor Rex, I
Yes.
can sum up Olena and Samia. So if we ask any open question, we will have several sub questions. If I want to be specific, I must ask a closed-ended question to reach what I want. So we can make a mix of the questions. Open questions, we will consequently have sub questions open till we reach whatever. If I need to be specific, I must ask closed-end question to reach my answer.
Okay, so very good. So going back to the video, you remember how she said that has to be broad in nature when developing that research question?
Yes, she recommended to ask open-ended questions. What she said, she recommended to open-ended questions. What I said, and sometimes we need to be very precise, so we must use closed-end questions so as not to make the research go out of our hands if we keep asking several open-ended questions. I don't know if that's correct or not, but I know if I need a specific answer, I must ask a closed-end question.
No, I mean, by the very nature of the definition of that, that is correct. And but at times, of course, we want that open-ended question too if we want to explore further. So yeah, both are correct. Very good. Very good. Excellent. Very good. All right. So let's okay. So the measurement questions. All right. So we kind of touched on this a little bit earlier. Measurement questions are the actual questions that researchers use to collect data in a study. Okay, so measurement questions may or may not be defined during stage 2, the research design. Okay, so measurement questions. All right. And we had some examples of different types of measurement questions. Anyone else want to add to that? So it says they could become questions on a survey or elements on an observation checklist. Okay. Yes, Samia.
So that this is like so true when we are actually conducting a research. Many times that when we are creating any surveys, we might miss the important questions, and those can come later because as users are answering those questions, we get to know more exactly what they are looking for. um, there can be many examples where we found more information from the surveys, and that's why many organizations are moving towards analytics applications. Even researchers are moving towards analytics applications, Google Analytics or Adobe, that they just send those survey emails, and when they get more information, and on the basis of that, they just change their path of asking questions so that they can get more information.
Ah, very good. That's excellent. That's excellent. Okay, very good. Good. All right, let's go here first. Okay, so exploration strategy. All right, so Schindler defines this as a process that defines what exploratory information sources will be used and what methods will be used to extract information from those sources. So think about that. I have another video for you here. And
Popular and Scholarly Sources, the Information Cycle, brought to you by CSUSB's John M. Thau Library. In our world, we are surrounded by information. Books, blogs, tweets, videos, news. It can be quite overwhelming. In this video, we'll make sense of all of these information sources. We'll look at these in the context of the information cycle. Specifically, we'll discuss the difference between popular sources like magazines and radio broadcasts and scholarly sources like peer-reviewed articles and academic books. To understand the difference, it's helpful to think about how information is created. Okay, let's say you are the first person ever to spot the elusive but magical horned squirrel. You might take a photo, add a hashtag, and post it on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter. All of your friends and followers then share the photo. The local TV station might see your photo and come interview you about what you saw. Heck, you might even get a radio interview. Over the next few days, your story appears on news stations, and after weeks and months, you get a featured story in a national magazine. Oh, the fame! Let's pause here. All of the sources that emerge from your initial sighting of the elusive but magical horned squirrel are what we call popular sources. From your first post to the magazine article, the purpose has been to describe what happened and maybe even to entertain. Because popular sources are usually accessible to anyone with the internet or TV or radio, they use casual language that everyone can understand. Finally, these popular sources are created fairly quickly after an event happens. After about 6 months or so, we begin to see the emergence of a whole new type of source. These are called scholarly sources because, well, they're just that. Rather than simply describe an event, these peer-reviewed articles, academic books, and data study it in depth, provide additional context, and even generate more questions. They are typically created by experts, like your professors, and are thus often considered more authoritative than, say, a magazine article written by a journalist. Because they are academic, they use more formal language and are meant for researchers, faculty, and students like you. Whereas popular sources are created fairly quickly after an event, scholarly sources will not be produced for months or even years later. If, for example, your professor wants to publish a peer-reviewed article on the way middle-aged men incorporate the myth of the elusive but magical horned squirrel into the stories they tell their children, it will take a while. First, your professor would need to explore existing literature on the topic, interview a group of middle-aged men, look at artifacts they have created, and then submit the article for peer review. All of this work can take a long time. So what does this have to do with your college research? Well, the sources that are created following an event fall into what we call the information cycle. Because you will at some point need to use a source that fits a particular need, you'll need to determine whether you should use a popular source, a scholarly source, or both. Remember, each uses a specific type of language and has its own purpose, perspectives, level of authority, and audience.
Okay. All right. So let's go back. I think I may have missed someone who wanted to, Mr. Was it Clement? Did you want to comment on the previous discussion before I move forward? I didn't see you raise your hand earlier. I apologize for that. Okay. All right. So the exploration strategy. Okay, an exploration strategy must answer these questions. So what information sources should be used? And what methods will be used to extract information from these sources? So on the first one, so these sources are designed to reveal information to help the manager understand the dilemma, identify courses of action, so those options, and clarify concepts, constructs, operational definitions, and variables needed to frame the research question and beyond. And then that second one is the methods, detail how managers will communicate with or locate a desired source. So, so good. So let's see. The video talked about popular sources and scholarly sources. We'll drill that down to something more specific here in a minute. So on this first section here, what information sources should be used? What are they trying to get at here? What would be some examples of that? Let's say you were doing. Go ahead, Samya. Yes.
No, definitely this question is coming out right when we are watching that video. That exactly what should be our source of research when we are researching, and really when something is posted on a social media like Facebook, LinkedIn, or anywhere else, if it is posted by a general person, I mean, who just got an idea and posted that general, good to read. But I think I would believe that it's always recommended to prioritize academic sources, because those are like created by qualified people like you and scholars, um, over those popular general sources. So um, I would always prioritize academic sources as compared to the popular sources.
Very good. Very good. Yes. Yes, Elena.
I can share my experience because it's more specific, as I work exactly as sales analyst, exactly in sales processes. So we mostly investigate from data that we receive from the client, and also we get the data from the CRM system or any kind of integration that a client has. So by receiving the reports or having the data inside CRM, we are also able to explore the research.
Okay, very good. So, so then from Samya's point of view, since she does a lot of clinical research, her sources would have to be, as she says, academic, scholarly, peer-reviewed sources. And for Elena, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Elena, but you would use similar sources. However, you could also use popular sources since you are trying to target a specific audience. So a lot of the information that companies can get on social media, hence the Google Analytics and some of the things that LinkedIn does, would benefit companies who just want to get the popular opinion sources. So it's interesting, right? How it depends on the situation where these could be considered reliable sources. Very, very good. I appreciate your comments. Very good there. And then the methods for extracting these this information from these sources. I think we talked about surveys. That's definitely one. I guess they do maybe in clinical research, they do actually have control groups and is that correct, Samia? And you will actually be working with patients in these different settings. Is that correct?
Yes, for sure. Can you repeat your question, Professor? I'm sorry.
Oh yeah. So I'm talking about the methods that will be used to extract the information from the sources.
Yes.
So okay.
Yes, for sure. I mean, I was thinking from the video perspective, it's always good to really use the academic sources, but on the other hand, when it comes to clinical research and those kind of research, it's always good to really go to the sources which are like coming out of surveys, whether we are using any tool like Google Analytics or Adobe Analytics to find those particular questions from patients and then our users. So in that perspective, it is true that we really need to go with the crowd, what they think and what exactly they want to achieve from this research. But then when it comes to really thinking about that video, I think it's always good to go with the academic sources. And I always follow that practice even in my assignments. You'll see I mostly go with the textbook and exactly what is written there, because if I explore more in Google and here and there, I would find more information which is general as compared to, what is the static information provided in the academic books.
Very good. Very good. Yes. So when I was doing my doctoral research, I know that my my advisors in my community really made it a point to tell me that you don't want to use anything that's outside of a scholarly resource, something that is part of the research literature. And the other thing that they really stressed was that the research should be less than 5 years old, and so that's that hasn't come up yet, but it has to be something that's more contemporary, because the things change, right? And so the research that we do can change the research that was done prior to that time period. So that's very good. Good.
Thank
Okay,
you for
so
sharing. We didn't know that this is like new learning, that it needs to be only just 5 years old. Thank you for sharing.
oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
So,
So,
Professor Rex, I think exploration strategy might depend on the field. I 100% agree with Samia regarding clinical trial. We must take accredited sources. But for example, for Pepsi and Coca-Cola, they go to the TV to see how much the ad is beneficial, how many people see them. Same for Facebook, same for Instagram, number of hits. So today's strategies differ than before. It depends on the field, I think so.
very good. And not only within the field, it depends on the situation within the field, as Samia was saying, that both types of approaches work within the studies that she's done. So, and Elena was pointing out that, you know, as you were saying, Mr. Buena, that sometimes the popular source is the best source when you're trying to target a specific customer base. So good. Oh, very, very, very good answers and input and feedback. So I really appreciate that. So let's see here. It says through exploration, researchers understand the management dilemma, management problem, and research question. Discover how others have addressed and or solved problems similar to the current management dilemma or management question. We talked about that. Establish priorities for dilemmas and problems to be addressed. Identify action options and develop the hypotheses. Gather background information on the topics in order to refine the research question. Identify information that should be gathered to formulate investigative questions. Develop operational definitions for concepts, constructs, and variables. Provide the evidence for justifying and budgeting research. That's very important. Set the foundation for final research design, and that's very, very important as well. Exploration can also identify sources for and actual questions that might be used as measurement questions in any subsequent research. That's important. Research findings often will prompt additional research. In fact, a requirement in my dissertation was to make suggestions for where additional research can be made and where the research can be carried on and further research should be made, and addressing some of the limitations. And we'll talk about limitations of research later in the chapters. And also exploration can also identify sources for actual sample frames that might be used in sampling design. So very good here. Okay, so the exploration strategy methods. This is a nice little diagram, and at the center of it all is the exploration strategy. So examination of published sources. So we talked about that. Samia talked about that, and I look at this as the scholarly sources and published sources, although it doesn't have to be, right? It could be a magazine or that's just, you know, a fan-based magazine, but it would have information in there that might help in the research based on what some of the, I think I may have skipped someone here. Did I need to do that? Okay. All right, then the examination of digital sources. So that's important, and we'll talk about that. I want to get a conversation going on that real quickly. And you know, we're getting short on time, but I do want to come back to that. And then interviews, individual or group. So we also talked about this as well. And let's see here. Yes, Clement. I cannot pronounce your name. I try to practice it, but I'm going to just say Clement. Yes. Clement to Ejito. Is it? You can speak. Go ahead, please. We can't hear you if you are speaking. I see your hand raised, but we can't hear you.
Maybe some issues with his speaker because he is not on mute.
No, he isn't on mute. I can see that. That's true. So I do apologize. We cannot hear you. You can type your responses if you want to in the chat, and I will read those. So you go ahead and put those in the chat. But so these are the three areas: published sources, digital sources, and interviews or of individuals or groups. So what are some of the someone else here? Okay, go ahead. Say comments. See, you're back. We cannot hear you. It would be okay if you can want to just type it in the chat, because we can't. Yeah, we can't hear you. I apologize for that. There's something that's not working correctly there. Okay. Okay. So digital sources? That's a huge one, right? And here we are in the 21st century. It's a rare occasion when someone will physically go to a library or some other physical location to gather information. We do it by video, interviews. We do it by phone calls. We do it through internet interactions. And here's an interesting thing too, is that when I did my dissertation, we weren't allowed to use internet sources. So the digital sources weren't allowed. I had to physically go to libraries at different universities and campuses and interview individuals and conduct surveys, physically do that at the time. But now there's so much information that's available in these digital formats that that's no longer a restriction. So. Okay, so let's see what we. Okay, so again, we have that exploration strategy, and let me go back to, you see that digital sources down there again. Digital sources also is in the primary sources category as well now, as I was saying. So that, so we kind of come full circle here on that. That's the end of that presentation, but let me share some other things with you. Let me go ahead and stop sharing that screen and Let's go here. Okay, so let me go ahead and then we only have a few minutes left here, but I just wanted to just share some things here with you. Okay, so are you seeing the textbook here?
Yes, we can see.
Oh, great. So here, this goes into, the textbook goes into a little more detail on what they mean by primary, secondary, and tertiary sources. So, and that's page 57 and 56. So be sure to review this, and because that's great information there. And here, people as sources. So we talked about this a lot, you know, using people and people's opinions. They don't have to be experts in the field, but for a strong search of published or digital sources will reveal the identity of people who can add valuable insight, and that's very true. Think of these individuals as information gatekeepers, it says. So that's really, really important. So again, go ahead and review that. And it has a great case study here that they talk about. And then published sources. And then it goes into detail on external sources as well. And then like your indexes and bibliographies. And so raw and summarized data, okay? I would recommend that you go back and review that as well. Okay, then here's another case study about here. And all of these different sources, label laws and issues. So this is some really good examples here of things that you would use. We used to actually use physical encyclopedias when we go to the library and pull a book off the shelf, but again, that's all digital, digitally formatted now. Directories, articles, reports, blogs, and books. Blogs, well, that was something that we couldn't use when I first started doing research, but now blogs are, we have blogs that are actually created and maintained by the subject matter experts and experts in the fields, NASA and different groups and organizations use blogs as well. So let's see here. We get to so Mr. Vela says in the next few years we'll use AI to those sources, and that's well, that's very, very true. AI has become, yes, Tanya.
So about the blogs we see on the social media, Professor. So which one? I mean, we pick those, and I know some are from the great organizations like NASA and all. But then, what should be our filtration of picking those blogs as our learning sources? Because some could be just that those are from the, sorry for the background noise. Some could be just from the author who might not have that much of insight on that topic. So exactly what should be our filtration of picking those blogs as our learning sources? Is my question.
That's an excellent question. So a very good criteria to use as a researcher is to identify whether or not that source is citing where they're getting their information. If you read a blog and you see no in-text citation and there's no references, I would question that blog, the authenticity, in the legitimacy, and how truthful the information is, because no one knows everything, and if they are coming across as if they are the prime source of information, then it's just an opinion. It's not really valuable information. So you would first look at what they're citing as their resources, and then look at if those are valid resources. So, you know, they might be using, they might reference another blog. But if their references are going back to some good, reliable resources, then
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, this is what I have been following and told by the professors, that it always should be in-text cited, and then references should be there, and then exactly the valid sources, as you mentioned, should be the case. Otherwise, it's not really a good source of learning. Thank you.
absolutely. Good question. Yes, and Mr. Obrela.
Sometimes we take the expert opinion without citation or reference, but we take their opinion as a reference. Sometimes there is blogs about expert opinions, and an expert about this situation is saying 1, 2, 3. So should I take it in consideration or not?
So is that your question?
Yes.
Okay. So let's say if it depends on who's writing the blogs. Let's say a blog was developed by an organization and their focus is on fast food restaurants, but they decided they wanted to write a blog about space exploration in the debate that's going on whether or not they should go to Mars or Venus. It might be a blog that's created by a legitimate organization, but they are not qualified to provide content on that topic. So again, so you would look at what they're using as their resources, and then you would look at the nature or the organization that's created the blog. So again, so you want to just question that and not take any of that information at face value, because they are not a reliable resource, although they might be using citations. They again, you would go to the source, go directly to the source. If you're looking for specific information, then you want to find a blog that is created by that specific source of that information, and not secondhand information. Does that answer your question, Mr. Whalen?
It answered part of it, but the other part, what if an expert said his opinion, expert in this field, he just posted his opinion as an expert, and we know he's accredited expert, but without research, without anything. Should I take it in consideration or not? Take the expert himself opinion.
Yeah. So that's a very good question. So in that, and we're out of time, but in that case, what you would do is you would make sure that you cite that individual. So you use that as an in-text citation and say where you got the source from, you include that in your references. So although they are an expert in their field, you want to, so that kind of covers you too. So we use our citations for two reasons. One, to avoid plagiarism. We don't want to take credit for something that, is not our original concept of thought. The other is to protect you, because you may be repeating something that may not, but that might prove to be incorrect or just an opinion later on. But you have protected yourself by citing that resource. So does that answer your question, Mr. Obrela, about both questions?
Yeah, thank you very much. Yes.
Oh, you're very welcome. Very great participation today. Run out of time, so that's I consider that's a successful lecture when we have that much participation. So thank you so much. Again, remember to respond to that week 3 discussion. It's due tomorrow at midnight. And also remember to send me your chapter 3 writing assignment. So I look forward to reading that. Great discussions today. All of you have a wonderful rest of your weekend. Please be safe out there, and I look forward to speaking to you next week. Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you, Professor. Have a great rest of the day, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Professor. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Bye and thank you, Professor. Have a nice weekend.
Thank you. Welcome. Bye-bye.